Why did our founding fathers give us the right to vote? Why did they prioritize this right over so many others? Our founding fathers had just fought a very bloody war for our independence. Therefore, they wanted to create a system where they handed the power of our nation not to just themselves, but to future generations. This power was the right to vote. The right to vote was intended to be used as a tool for citizens to protect their nation that they built. Let's throw it back to the 2000 election where it was Al Gore versus George Bush. Republicans for George Bush and Democrats for Al Gore. The nation was divided as ever, almost as divided as it is today. But when it comes to electing presidents, America has a funny way of doing it. We use an electoral college where each state gets a number of electoral votes based off of their population, and based off of the popular vote in each state or in that state, those votes goes towards a certain candidate who needs to add up to 270 electoral votes to win the presidential election. For example, if Texas was 50.1% Republican and 49.9% Democrat in their popular vote, that state's electoral votes would be handed over to the Republican nominee. As the 2000 election narrowed down, it all came down to the state of Florida to push either candidate over 270 votes. The difference in Florida came down to just over 1,000 votes in favor of the Republican candidate, George Bush. So close in Florida that Al Gore asked for a recount in just certain counties across Florida, believing that he could win the entire election off of this recount. After the recount, the split came down to just over 100 people in favor of George Bush. So Gore asked again for more recounts in certain counties across Florida, and the case goes to the state of Florida Supreme Court, where they figure out that the voting system in Florida is so messed up at the time that it would be impossible to recount the votes. They would have to redo the entire election because it would be too expensive, and they would have to change their entire way of how they even counted votes in the first place. So the case then went up to the National Supreme Court, where they made a 5-4 decision to not redo the election in the state of Florida, therefore allowing George Bush to win the entire presidential election. I want you to remember that the vote came down to 5 Republican Supreme Court justices who voted yes, or voted no, I mean, for the case, and then 4 Democrats who voted no for the or voted yes for the recount. So Supreme Court justices are appointed by presidents, so your vote matters every time that you vote because you could be affecting future generations by whoever the president puts in those Supreme Court justices if they have a chance to. I don't know how fair of a decision you think that the Supreme Court made, but I'll allow you to make that decision. This power, the right to vote, was intended to be used as a tool. This is why everybody should vote, because it is our duty, which is illustrated in the fact that our founding fathers entrusted us to stay informed on problems in our nation. Secondly, our vote matters wherever that we live in America, whether we're in a big state or a small state, and our vote affects not just our nation, but the entire world. I was born and raised in small town Idaho, where it's predominantly Republican and definitely not a swing state. I still felt a sense to participate in our democracy, though, even though I kind of knew how things were going to pan out for my state. I've always been into politics my entire life, but what really instilled in me to want to vote was my civics teacher, Mr. Bridger. Mr. Bridger would go on with these crazy speeches that would go on and on forever, it felt like, just screaming at us and banging on desks saying it is our duty as future generations of America to protect America by our right to vote. And today I hope to do the same. I hope to inspire you to want to fulfill your duty as an American and vote. After the revolution, our founding fathers wanted no more bloodshed. They wanted people to get the ultimate say in how our nation was ran. So they created a democracy in hopes that it would lead to peace. Thomas Jefferson in 1806 is quoted as saying, "Should things go wrong at any time, the people will set them right by the peaceable exercises of their electoral rights." With democracy, our founding fathers empowered us to shape America's future through voting. They could have kept the power to themselves. They were arguably more educated men for their time. But they knew as the nation went on and in the future that this would lead to tyranny. So they trusted in people to stay informed on the problems in our nation and make wise voting decisions at the ballot box to keep America on the right path. When we vote, we honor their trust and can continue their legacy of freedom. Secondly, our vote matters wherever we live in America. A reason to vote is that each person has a voice, whether we are in a big state or a small state. We appoint leaders to speak on our behalf in Congress. They speak on problems such as education, health, and environment. So each vote matters for who we put to speak about our problems. The Electoral College also ensures that smaller states have a say in our presidential election. This prevents situations where big states like California have complete control over the election. While some people disagree with how our electoral college is set up, it ensures that every person has a voice and representation across America. Therefore, our choices directly shape our community and our country. Lastly, our vote doesn't just affect our nation. According to Investatopia, with a GDP of $28.78 trillion, the US has the biggest economy in the world. Therefore, the decisions that our leaders make affect not just our nation, but the entire world's economy. Additionally, the US has the largest military in the world. Elected officials make decisions on how we use our military. When we are voting, we are deciding who and how our nation is going to handle foreign affairs. In conclusion, we are choosing people who could potentially be steering us towards war and are playing with people's entire lives. Our vote is the most influence, it is the most significant influence on the entire world around us. To summarize, everyone should vote because our founding fathers entrusted us to protect America through democracy. They created a system where all voices are heard and our decisions do not just affect our nation, but the whole world around us. Voting is not just a right, it is a responsibility. I will end this with a powerful quote from Lyndon B. Johnson. Voting is our first duty to democracy. Democracy depends on our participation. So let's fulfill our duty and protect our values and make a difference in the world by voting. Thank you. Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done. All info can be found from thehumanrightscareer.com, splcenter.org, National Geographic, and the National Constitution Center.